Hi, my name is Russ Webb and I'm the National Registrar for the CPCA. This video is to answer your questions as to why you should consider becoming a member of the Canadian Professional Counselors Association. In this video, I'll try to answer some important questions. For example, who is the CPCA? What is a competency model and why is the CPCA dedicated to the competency model? What is the difference between a member of a professional association and a provincial regulatory college? What benefits are there to becoming a member of the CPCA? And what CPCA certifications can I apply for? And of course, where do I start? First, who is the CPCA? Since our founding in 1990, the CPCA has been dedicated to the promotion of public confidence and trust in the counseling profession in Canada. The CPCA serves the Canadian public from coast to coast to coast. As the original inclusive counseling association for mental health counselors in Canada, we commit to the purpose of working together to promote and support competency in clinical counseling and psychotherapy. And what is the competency model and why is the CPCA dedicated to upholding a competency model for clinical counseling profession? Well, as you can see in this pyramid, there are 7 elements that build upon each other that are necessary for competency for a clinical counselor, not only starting their clinical practice, but competency throughout their entire professional life. You see, we recognize that a specific degree does not equate with clinical competency. Over and over it has been shown that clinical competency is more than just education, even though education is a critically important component of competency. So the reason that we have these elements of competency is because competency also involves a combination of many areas of education and experience. Competency is the ability to perform numerous skills at appropriate and discernible points in time. Competency is an understanding and application of the boundaries of ethical practice. And competency also involves understanding one's own process and issues to address. Competency is a commitment to always growing and to learning as a clinician, and is an openness to feedback in clinical supervision. Regular reflective practice and self-care for the clinician to ensure their best mental health is also a key component of competency. And lastly, competency is a willingness to be accountable to other professionals to ensure optimum clinical practice. And what is the difference between a regulatory body or college and a professional counseling association like the CPCA? Well, a regulatory body or college is a provincially legislated and legally empowered agency comprised of members of the profession that have a specific regulatory powers under the Regulated Health Professions Act. The regulatory college's purpose is to protect the public, so it licenses clinical counselors who have the competency to practice in order to ensure the public is not going to be harmed. Its role is to set standards, ethics, investigate complaints, and to ensure title protection of certain titles that only licensed members can use, like physicians, psychologists, social worker, dentists. If a province has a regulatory college, one cannot practice a profession without being a member of that regulatory college. But a regulatory college is there to serve the public, not the clinical counselor. The CPCA is also recognized as being a regulatory college for our registered members. However, membership in a professional association is for the clinical counselor. It's not mandatory, but it's considered best practice for clinical counselor, especially in a province that has a regulatory college. The purpose of membership is for the certification, support, and development of the clinical counselor. A professional association exists to serve the members, provide certification, advocate on behalf of them, and provide opportunities for continuing education, job boards, membership benefits like liability insurance, health insurance, and to have their services covered by other insurance companies. Associations generally lobby the government to influence policy and further the economic, employment, and professional political interests of its members. Yes, the CPCA is there for its members. And membership in the CPCA gives you great recognition. Recognition by adding letters after your name, whether that's RPCC, RPC, MPCC, or MPCCS, verifying your competency. It gives you recognition from many employers as a counseling professional. It gives you recognition to many insurance companies for reimbursement of clinical fees. And it gives you recognition from EAP providers as a clinician they can contract with to do clinical work, as well as recognition from provincial regulatory colleges as eligible for provincial licensing to practice. And being a member of the CPCA helps to protect you through access to liability insurance premium rates for CPCA members only, pro bono legal counsel through your liability insurance with McFarland Rowlands, as well as CPCA Association health and dental plan, critical illness plan, travel medical plans, professional guidance on ethical issues, and guidance to develop your private practice. And the CPCA membership gives you access to direct billing, a huge benefit if you are considering private practice. The CPCA has formed a relationship with TELUS Health for all CPCA members to have the ability to direct bill counseling services through the TELUS Health system. The telehealth system represents 40 insurance providers, which is 68% of all private insurance providers in Canada. This member benefit applies to all unregulated provinces and all counseling CPCA members in regulatory provinces who are registered with their provincial college. The CPCA member counseling services are also covered by other insurance providers beyond TELUS Health. Examples are Sun Life and Chamber of Commerce, just to name a couple. And being a member of the CPCA also gives other great benefits, such as CPCA conferences and on a provincial and national basis, counselor online directory, lobbying and advocacy to governments and private agencies for CPCA members, professional guidance on legal and ethical issues, guidance in developing private practice, and member safety and client referral support. So, what different certifications or designations does the CPCA grant? Well, different levels of membership show different levels of competency, which has been earned and validated. We start with the student member, who can apply and become a member of the CPCA while they're in their educational program. It enables the student member to become familiar with the CPCA and get a significant discount when needing to complete the qualifying exam. At the CPCA, we have the early bird special. Become a student member of the CPCA, and when you complete your program and you're ready to take the qualifying exam, you get the exam at half price. Next is the RPCC. The RPCC is the Registered Professional Counselor Candidate who does not have all the clinical hours or clinical supervision needed to become an RPCC practitioner. But once they have completed their clinical hours and supervision hours, they can apply to upgrade to Registered Professional Counselor, or RPC designation. But above the RPC designation, there are still two other certifications. The MPCC is the Master Practitioner in Clinical Counseling. This designation is for the clinician who has practiced in the counseling field for a minimum of 5 years out of the last 8 years, completing 1,250 clinical practice hours, including 750 direct client contact hours and 250 clinical supervision hours. And then we also have the MPCCS, which is our supervisory designation. They have even more hours in clinical practice, and have taken specific education in clinical supervision. All of these designations allow for recognition of competency and mastery in clinical counseling. But let's take a look at the student member. Student membership involves three things. You need to be enrolled in an accredited college or university program that is specific to counseling psychology, and you needs to have 1,100 hours of counseling psychology theory and training. A minimum of also 120-hour practicum that's a part of that training within it, and under qualified supervision. There's many benefits to student membership, and of course, developing your own professional identity, learning how more about the CPCA and how to grow as a clinician, being able to interact with other clinicians within the CPCA, and substantial savings when it comes to the qualifying exam. So when thinking about education, what kind of education is needed? Well, the CPCA Counseling Core Competencies is a document that provides a list of all the competencies that an educational program must meet to be able to become a CPCA approved educational program. It is a list of competencies for entry into the counseling practice, and you can find these core competencies on our website, but for now, let's take a brief look at them. So the CPCA core competencies are grouped into 8 categories. The first is counseling foundations. And in counseling foundations, we do address such topics as human development across the lifespan, culture and diversity, as well as creating and understanding a theoretical framework for counseling, as well as mental health and how mental health issues. The second area is counseling interventions. And in counseling interventions, we learn how to do clinical assessment, crisis intervention, and conflict resolution. And the third area of competency is in counseling processes. And there are a variety of counseling processes throughout the whole counseling relationship, including orientation, being able to do good clinical assessment, therapeutic relationship, and the therapeutic process, as well as closure. And the fourth area is counseling skills and techniques. And there's many counseling skills and techniques that are necessary to develop the therapeutic relationship, as well as therapeutic communication and process. And the fifth area is ethics and ethical practice. This is a huge area and critically important to your whole entire professional career in terms of commitment to regulatory standards and commitment to ethical practice. The sixth area is reflective practice, which involves elements of increasing self-awareness, addressing self-care and personal safety, as well as clinical supervision and personal professional congruence. The seventh area is professional practice. And in professional practice, we're learning clinical record keeping and professional business practices and boundaries, collegial relationships and consultation and collaboration. And the last area is professional communication. And in professional communication, we're addressing third-party support, referrals, third-party reports, media, and social media issues. So many enter into the CPCA as students who, after completing their educational program, then upgrade. But some enter into the CPCA specifically directly as an RPCC. The steps are to first complete an approved 1,100-hour educational program specific to counseling. Second, to complete an application form. Third, to successfully complete the qualifying exam. And fourth, as part of the candidacy, they obtain a signed contract for supervision with a qualified and approved clinical counselor while completing the following: 150 clinical supervision hours, 250 direct client contact hours, and 200 professional practice hours or currency hours. Occasionally we come across applicants who want to avoid the RPCC candidacy. This is usually due to a misunderstanding of what the nature and purpose of what the RPCC candidacy is for. To understand this, it first must be understood that the RPCC is a full practicing designation. A person can choose to go into private practice with this designation if they feel ready to do so. But why does the CPCA have this specific designation? This RPCC candidacy is valuable for 4 reasons. First, for more foundational support. The RPCC candidacy ensures that a new clinical counselor has a contract with an approved clinical supervisor who takes on responsibility to ensure that the RPCC is getting more regular clinical supervision when an individual is starting their professional career. Ensuring that they have more clinical support as they start their career is not only kind, but wise. Second, increased clinical success. A contracted clinical supervisor is dedicated to the RPCC's success. It is so valuable for a new clinician to feel success when they are starting with new clients and in their new business. Third, greater professional development. There is so much personal and professional growth that happens for a new clinician in their first year of practice. An RPCC receives guidance on how to grow their practice, what types of continuing education might be valuable for their continued development. A candidacy is a continued commitment to growth while in practice. All counseling professionals need affirmation, reassurance, guidance, refined clinical thinking, and skill development to feel like they are growing in their competency. The RPCC candidacy is structured to ensure that this can happen. And fourth, greater protection. An RPCC candidate is a full practicing designation. They are encouraged to inform their clients that they have a clinical supervisor when explaining the limits of confidentiality. As such, having that clinical supervisor helps to provide greater liability protection if someone or something were to go sideways with a client. And as an RPCC, your liability insurance helps you, but you are also protected by the fact that you have a clinical supervisor who also has their own liability insurance. The CPCA is dedicated to supporting competency in all of our clinical counselors, and the RPCC candidacy is a mechanism to have that support in place to ensure that a clinician builds a strong foundation in their emerging identity as a professional counselor. Why would the CPCA not want to provide more foundational support, more or increased clinical success, and greater professional development and greater protection for new clinicians entering into the profession? I think the answer is, of course we want to do this. And then we have the Registered Professional Counselor, or the RPC designation. And to get this RPC designation, you need to complete an application, successfully complete an approved 1,100-hour educational program specific to counseling, and a minimum of 600 hours made up of the following, where you have 150 supervision hours, 250 hours of direct client contact, 200 hours of professional practice or currency hours, as well as successfully completing a qualifying exam if you have not already done so as an RPCC. You'll need 2 letters of recommendation, proof of liability insurance, and lastly, a criminal records check. So where do I start? We would love to hear from you. Check out our webpage and feel free to email us. If you have questions, please send your questions to info@thecpca.ca. And when you're ready to send in your application, send it to application@thecpca.ca. Thanks. We'd love to have you become part of an organization dedicated to the best welfare of our clients.